You're 42, right?
42.
42. So if there's anyone listening here, please call me. I'll give you all the vital information. I mean, I think you've never been married, have you?
Never been married.
Levy, 42.
Yeah,
At 18, the Talmud says your bones begin to rot.
Wow.
I don't know. What, is there a way to contact you if someone's interested? I heard. I'll have to work that out. Okay. So that's model 2.
Yeah. What's model 3?
That's the householder model. Okay. So our first model is the partnership model expressed in the kind of creative fire. Mm-hmm. That's one. Our 1A that he didn't do was a partnership model, which is kind of partnership in values and personal spiritual evolution, ethical growth. Mm-hmm. Right. Model 2 is kind of the householder model, and we, that was level 2 or number 2, and our 2A is the actual, we viewed, Woody Allen as, creating a kind of shadow of that model, a kind of caricature of that model, but the genuine building of a home, all of its depth, the home, not the edifice, is actually a profound model. And the third model, if I had to give it a name, I would call it the existential model, right? Mm-hmm. I know that's not a helpful name, but by existential, what I mean is, it's the model that searches for in marriage, right, the fixing of that which we experience as being broken inside, right? It's the place where the yearning is finally met, right? It's the place where, the profound desire for moving beyond, the superficialities, of the humdrum every day, is finally addressed. That's the image, that's the archetype. In other words, it's when the prince finally meets the princess, when the warrior meets the warriorette, that there's some meeting which takes us beyond the banality of living, and it's clear that Cristina, aka Scarlett, that's what she's looking for. She's looking for something which is, and it's the best of bohemian. Again, I'm not talking about whether this is good or bad. I want to set up what the model is. The model is, the best of bohemian is I don't want to be bourgeois, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be everyday. I don't want to get lost in, a tale told by an idiot full of sounds and fury signifying nothing. I don't want to get lost in kind of, Carp Joneses. That's all just too fresh. It's just that, the terror of that, just, the terror of getting lost in, in suburban heaven, just kind of, suffocates her soul, and so she's looking with just enormous, passion and with enormous, enormous, flair, and there's a French word I'm looking for, but I know I'm going to mispronounce it. I won't use it, but with an enormous kind of,
joy of life. Yeah,
joy of life and spark and search for depth. She's looking for something deep. She doesn't know what it is. Reb Shlomo Carlebach used to. He didn't actually cite his source. His source is actually the Ishbitzer Rebbe, Mordechai Leiner of Izbeka. But he used to say, it's a direct quote from the Izbeka, the opposite of the holy is the superficial. It's very beautiful, right? The opposite of the holy is the superficial. I've always felt it to be like a really, really, really beautiful, deep teaching. The Ishbitzer calls it omek, which is, depth, and gavan, which is surface, and he sets them up, throughout his 2 volumes, of Hasidic, Kabbalistic commentary. He sets them up as opposites. And I think, she understands that a little bit, Levy, She's looking for holiness. Whatever, she doesn't have the word for it. She can't identify it, but she's looking for authenticity. She's looking for depth, and so she tries it in different forms. So she tries it with the Spanish painter, and she tries it, in this kind of menatois, this kind of, sacred trinity, sacred, artistic, sexual, romantic, erotic trinity, with Penelope, paintress, and the painter, and it works for a while. But since it ultimately doesn't have ballast in authentic depth, and ultimately it doesn't have there's no vision, there's something missing in it, she just winds up, ultimately unsatisfied by it, and goes to look again for it. And you kind of wonder, will she ever find it? We don't know at the end of the movie. Will she find it? She certainly hasn't found it yet, and we're not sure. Did she not find it because it wasn't there? Let's ignore kind of for a second, if we can, the classical biblical notion of one man, one woman marriage. let's suspend that for a second. Just in terms of the movie and its model, maybe she found it in this threesome. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that was beautiful, and we get the sense that maybe she did find it, but she was actually too restless. She didn't quite know what she was looking for. So we kind of felt like even if she did find it, she'd leave anyways. That she was kind of lost in this kind of perpetual seeking, where she was actually unable, like the first raven after Noah's flood, who was unable to find a place to rest. That kind of existential image, the Zohar plays with that image. The person that's the perpetual seeker. Is always looking for the next, and it's the person who kind of falls in love, and then it's kind of over, and then they look to fall in love again. So that would be the third. The third model would be kind of the existential seeker model. And please.
Yeah, speaking of that, I just this afternoon received a copy of a new memoir by a woman named Rachel Resnick, and the memoir is called Love Junkie. And she says in an interview that was enclosed with the book, you can tell if you're a love junkie if you meet someone new and instead of a spark, you get the whole meteor shower. It's like you're just shooting up that skin-tingling electric feeling of love right into your heart, and love wakes you up. Now, this could maybe be a sign of chemistry between two people if you're healthy, but love junkies aren't healthy. You're a love junkie if you have a core of neediness and dependency that's waiting to grasp onto someone. You want someone to rescue you, take care of you, the way your parents should have. You have a big gaping hole that the wind howls through, and that distorts our perceptions of the world, and especially of the destructive lovers we choose, which kind of sounds to me like the Scarlett Johansson character.
No, I think that's actually I would call her, I think that's a great analog. I would maybe call her even, and sometimes a depth junkie. She's looking for depth. She's looking for love, and she's looking for depth. But yeah, I think that's completely right. There's actually a whole literature on love addiction. So
yes.
It sounds like she's kind of taken the love addiction literature and translated into kind of a love junkie language, which is a good translation. But I think that's completely right. I mean, there is a kind of addiction, to love. And here's this is a nice thing just to maybe as our last point here. It's a really important thing, and it's a subtle thing, and maybe we can try and get at it together. 'Cause on the one hand, the commandment to love, the biblical consciousness, great commandment to be a lover, right? Is to love, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Love, your friend like you love yourself. Many different times. At least 20 different times in relation to the stranger, and so there's a deep and profound commandment to love, and that commandment is of course picked up by Christianity, and I think it's in Matthew, what is it, chapter 22 or something, I'm not sure, I don't remember, but maybe it's in Matthew, I don't remember where it is in Matthew, but it's in Matthew, the commandment to love, and so clearly love is much more expanded than the modern romantic notion where you maybe love your parents, post-therapy. Hopefully you love your wife, and you're a bastard if you don't love your children, and everyone else be damned. In other words, we've limited love. We've narrowed the circle of love, very dramatically. The biblical vision expands love, expands love certainly to kind of, all human beings, in a close reading of the text. And so, we kind of wonder, actually, when I meet someone, I actually fall in love. But that's true, actually. When I have a genuine meeting with a person who's a genuine person, there's a genuine encounter, then I totally love the person. Now, there's some people I fall in love with more, other people I love less, but love is ultimately a perception. It's to be able to see the deep and profound beauty, in the other person. And so there's uniqueness to love. You don't love everyone the same, or it would all be just kind of bland ice cream. But ultimately, virtually every human being, who hasn't been defaced and damaged and, and scarred beyond recognition, has some divine beauty. And actually, the commandment of the Torah would be, to actually, love that person. That's not the same as being a love junkie. And it seems like a love junkie is a person who wants every new person to be, and particularly in the romantic sense, to be the relationship that's going to rescue them, take care of them, etc. Actually, when I fall in love with someone in the Torah sense, I actually have no expectation of them at all, right? I don't expect they're going to rescue me or take care of me. I just kind of, I meaning not just Mordechai, but every human being who's